Hello and welcome to another MovieBoozer.com virtual pubcast. I'm your host, Ken, and I'm joined with Bill Leon.
Hello.
And Hawk Ripjaw.
Hello.
And we've got three big movies and some other interesting topics to cover this week. Big movies. I say big in...
All three of these movies that we have are big in one way or another.
Yes, that's a good one. That's a good way to put it. We're going to lead off by talking about Ben-Hur.
Which is big pile of shit.
And before I get into talking about my thoughts on the movie, I will say, first of all, that this is going to be a spoiler-heavy Ben-Hur. But if you've seen, the original movies, then whatever. Good.
I mean, it's from a novel from the 1800s, so
yeah.
If you were upset by spoilers, fuck you.
So anyway, before that though, I have a mix of the week to talk about, and now I made this Ben-Hur drink up. I actually last week rewatched the Charlton Heston film from 1959, and I made up the drink then, and promptly realized that it's choosing this movie to name a drink after this week. I can't do that. So I'm giving this drink inspiration credit to the 1959 film, and the drink is called Blood and Circuses, which is sort of a twist of the term bread and circuses. And my idea is to make a nice kind of to make a sweeter drink, something that's more party friendly, hence the circus element, and blood being the main color that this drink will contain is some cherry and pomegranate grenadine syrup.
Nice.
So, first of all, the first part of Blood and Circuses is your party, which is some vodka. And here's my glass. Now, this glass is one of those wonderful cocktail-ready glasses that measures you up at that line. That line is your shot. So we'll go ahead and
I've never seen that. Where do they sell glasses like that?
This was free with a bottle of Jameson.
Oh, okay.
So
you're supposed to mix Jameson with stuff?
You can. you can mix it. Look, it's got the Jameson logo on it. So yeah. Anyway, I poured a little bit more in a shot in there. So because I like.
So fuck the wine, obviously.
Well,
This is that.
It's a good guide to go by.
Is the over the line shot you coping with how bad this film was?
Well, to be honest, if I was needing to cope, I would probably be pouring this entire glass with vodka. So then you take the grenadine syrup and you put that in, and you want to just go just about the same amount of grenadine that you put in as alcohol. And so there's your blood. And just so that your drink is actually, a drinkable cocktail, I decided to go with something that has a little bit of fun in it too. Some sparkling lemon flavored water. This is the LaCroix water, but you can use just about any sparkling water you want.
LaCroix is good, although I would challenge you next time to use Squirt. See how that goes.
Squirt would be a good choice, but I didn't want this to be too overly sweet. The grenadine is very... have you ever had grenadine? It's basically sugar water.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you could pour grenadine on pancakes if you wanted.
Nice.
And so there we go.
Have you tried this yet?
I made it last week as a test when watching Ben-Hur.
We should just eventually just move away from trying the mixes and just fucking throw some stuff together and try it on air.
And just so and of course now you have kind of nice blood red drink, and you can see some nice bubbles there from the carbonation. That's a nice refreshing drink. And you're right, Squirt would be an interesting thing to throw in there, but this is definitely sweet enough as it is. The grenadine more than makes up for it. This is not dissimilar to a Shirley Temple cocktail.
Mm.
The only difference, of course, the booze takes it away. So this is sort of like, I guess, an alcoholic Shirley Temple, you could say. So let's get into Ben-Hur, shall we?
We shall.
So, okay.
We don't.
I'm going to first lead off by saying that the 1959 Ben-Hur, having rewatched it last week, is a phenomenal piece of filmmaking. It's not a perfect film, but it's one, and surprisingly it holds up very well. Impressive epics of its time, sprawling in scope, huge sets, gigantic matte paintings that enhance the size and depth of everything, spectacular miniature sequences, particularly in the battle, the naval battle mid-film. And it tells this epic story about this wealthy Jewish noble during the Roman era who, through an accident of fate, becomes enslaved and finds a way to bring himself all the way back through to seek vengeance on the person who sent him there, only to find redemption. It's your classic religious allegory, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a particularly spiritual or religious person, but it's a beautifully told story. It's ultimately a very redeeming story. Charlton Heston's performance, I know some people like to give him shit these days, but he was a classical theatrical performer, and that's the kind of performance that role demanded, and he provides it perfectly. It's got a wonderful cast. I love that movie, and it earns every minute of its nearly 4-hour running time. So fast forward to 2016. Hawk, why don't you give us your thoughts?
Well, everything that you said about the 59 version is true. The 2016 movie is none of those things. It earns nothing. It is not. So, a lot of things change. Well, a lot of key things change in this new version. So, in the original one, basically it's about Judah Ben-Hur and his rich-ass family who don't really care that the Romans are invading Jerusalem, which in this movie looks like 2 streets.
Mm-hmm.
Blandest set design I've ever seen in a movie of this price tag on it, $100 million.
It really felt like the HBO series Rome, except that show had an excuse because it was a TV series.
Yes, it's weird. This movie is expensive. It's $100 million, but it looks so cheap. And then his brother Masala. So Judah is played by Jack Huston or Huston, however you say it. John Huston. Nobody cares.
He's I don't know if you know this, but he's related to John Huston, the American director.
Right. And then Masala is played by Toby Kebbell, who hasn't been in a good movie in a very long time. He played Doctor Doom in the Fantastic movie of last year. So one of the things that changed is that in the original movie, it's Pontius Pilate, right? That's going through the street still. Is it still Pilate in both movies?
Well, this is where it gets complicated. If we want to go into what makes these films differ story-wise, there's a whole different dynamic. And,
right.
and of course, granted, neither movie is 100% true to the original book, but the movie comes a lot closer.
The first one.
Movie, well, I shouldn't say the first one because there's the 1925
the landmark version.
Right. But which I actually have not seen. I've been trying to find time to get a chance to see it, and I'll watch it eventually. But either way, the 1959 film deals with a lot more material from the book. So the first thing that this movie changes is the relationship between Masala and Judah Ben-Hur.
They're stepbrothers.
Yeah, exactly. In the original story and in the book, Masala and Ben-Hur are childhood friends. That's all they really tell you. They don't go into like this whole relationship of Masala was raised by them, and so they don't give you that dynamic. This movie instead tries to bring the two characters even closer together by saying they're not just friends, they're brothers.
Yeah.
And
I liked how this movie made Pontius Pilate basically Emperor Palpatine.
Pontius Pilate doesn't really show up in Ben-Hur until very near the end, by the way, in the actual book and in the 59 movie. It was actually another Roman governor
Okay.
who was involved in the initial incident. So let me start with the first instigating situation with Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur, first of all, sets up the two characters of Judah Ben-Hur and Masala as friends slash brothers, depending on your story, and they have grown up together. And at one point, Masala leaves in order to become a soldier in the Roman army, and he does this. He does this because he is Roman in blood, and he feels that is something he wants to do. And when he returns, he and Ben-Hur initially are friendly with each other, but quickly Masala tries to take advantage of their friendship by using Ben-Hur to get at the to get at the Jewish rebels who've been fighting the Romans.
The Zealots.
They call them Zealots in this film.
Right.
There's never mind. Go on.
So anyway, so the instigating situation that occurs is the new Roman governor to Jerusalem is to Judea is moving in, and in the original story, I forget his name. There's this other governor. He's moving in, and Masala is kind of there to be his military right hand. And what ends up happening is in the original book and in the movie, and in fact every movie adaptation of Ben-Hur until this film, what happens is the Romans are marching into the city, and the governor is coming right past the home where Ben-Hur lives, and Ben-Hur's sister accidentally knocks some loose tiles off of the roof, which falls and ends up hitting the governor on accident. It's a complete mistake. It wasn't meant to happen. And what ends up occurring is because of that mistake, because Ben-Hur refused to help Masala in betraying his people, Masala just makes this break with him. He decides, I feel my career is more important than my friendship. And so Ben-Hur his family gets completely destroyed, gets separated, and he gets sent to the galleys, the Roman galleys.
Yeah, to be a slave.
This movie makes a notable difference that makes a notable change that is, in my opinion, at its heart, the worst, most shoehorned, most Hollywooded, just to action things up choice. In that, rather than this being an accident, Ben-Hur stupidly takes in this kid who he heals and lets him sleep in a room full of weapons, and is surprised when this zealot who was previously trying to kill the Romans tries to fucking kill some Romans.
So I love this character, the Zealot, because he just pops up in random places in the movie just to fuck up. That's all he does in this movie is screw things up. Like he gets wounded. He gets wounded. He tries to shoot Pilate. He steals something later. He's at the chariot races for some reason, and then he's one of the thieves on the cross with Jesus. It's like,
yeah,
he just keeps showing up, and it's really funny.
His entire life seems to be to serve as a warning to others, including his death.
He's like he just fails at everything. He sucks.
Yeah, Exactly.
He's never done anything right in his entire life.
And so it's a terrible decision because it makes, first of all, it makes Ben-Hur actually guilty of doing something truly terrible, which was taking in a violent rebel. And so the Romans have a reason to send him to the galleys. The idea behind it was that Ben-Hur was truly betrayed. That is what makes Ben-Hur want to seek revenge, because in this case he's not betrayed by his friend. His friend sees, oh, wait a second, so he was supporting the rebels.
His friend Masala took arguably rightful action against Ben-Hur, against the Empire.
And regardless of how you judge morally on one side or another, as in his position, you can understand. So he sees that this person who he considered his friend was doing something that was actually actively working against his own interests, as opposed to in the other iterations of Ben-Hur, it's simply based around a misunderstanding, and that misunderstanding ruins him.
Yeah.
And that is just from a basic perspective, it changes the entire dynamic of the story.
Yeah.
And then the other problem is how quickly the story moves along. There are huge tracts of time which are just cut out of this movie.
It's such a choppy movie. It's not as bad as Suicide Squad, but it is more boring.
Well, and what's interesting is how the 4-hour-long Charlton Heston version doesn't feel its length nearly as much, and it's because the story has a lot of depth to follow. There's logical progression as the story moves along. It's an episodic story. You have the first part, which takes place in Jerusalem. You have the second part, which takes place in the Roman galleys. You have a brief third part that takes place in Rome itself. Then you have the fourth part back in Jerusalem, but now with Pontius Pilate in charge, and Masala has kind of become the head of the chariot races. And then you have the final act, which is the crucifixion of Jesus, and it's
yeah. This movie is like literally half of it is them fucking around Jerusalem, and then he gets betrayed. Mm-hmm. And then he's on the ship, and then Morgan Freeman finds him, and then does the chariot race, and the last 5 minutes is the Jesus part.
I find it interesting that you're like, hey, he was on the ship, and then because this movie doesn't spend barely. I mean, the ship sequence is supposed to be this big elaborate battle. It's
a
not
scene.
It's a scene. Versus in the movie from 1959, it's the point with which Ben-Hur gets a chance to. It's his first path to his redemption, because what happens is he's on this ship for years and surviving, and the captain of the galley takes notice of him and and has a conversation with him. And there's I'm trying to remember how I'm not going to get this line 100% accurate, but he's like, he sees his eyes and he's like, "You have hate. Hate's good. Hate keeps you alive."
Yeah. And then they become buddies.
Yeah, they become buddies. Not only buddies, but Ben-Hur does so much for his friend. Like after the ship sinks, he saves the captain's life, which in this movie. By the way, one thing I love about this movie is there are so many bits of looped dialogue in the movie that were clearly like some sound guy was like brought in to just loop in dialogue, and just there. Do you notice when the captain falls onto Ben-Hur's oar and he knocks the captain off and yells, "Die!" It's clearly a voice looped in that I don't even know if it's Jack Houston's, because it sounds like completely alien, like it's not coming from the soundtrack.
Jack Houston looked like Aquaman in that scene, by the way.
Yeah.
Which Aquaman? Good Aquaman or lame, broody?
Jason Momoa.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Bill, your audio's all janky.
Yeah, you're all robotic on us. So
keep trying, buddy.
So anyway, with this movie, as it moves along, I mean, the whole element of Ben-Hur being in Rome and being. They changed the story up in that in the original story, Ben-Hur saves the life of a Roman commander, and the Roman commander takes him in as his slave, but then eventually adopts him as his own and gets Ben-Hur clemency for his crimes. And that allows Ben-Hur to come back into Rome, into Jerusalem, and unharassed by the Roman armies. Instead, they cut that entire sequence out. Not sequence, that entire hour segment out of the story, and instead, God himself from the Bruce Almighty series adopts him and trains him to run horses in like a 2-minute segment.
Not even that. Okay, so first of all, it's ironic that a movie would unlike the Hess movie, our movie's about forgiveness. Where really you could almost argue that entire segment in the Heston version where he becomes friends with the captain is about forgiveness and redemption because, slave and owner have become, in a brother-like relationship. Secondly, he doesn't even really get taught to ride. He kind of gets taught to ride the chariots, but they figure out that he's good with horses because this other jackass that lives with Morgan Freeman lets the horses go and they get away, and then Jack Huston or Ben-Hur gets them back, and they realize, this guy knows horses, and so they decide to let him race. That's like you keep saying, condensing a long-ass book and a 4-hour movie into a 2-hour movie will end up with things looking very truncated.
Oh yeah, sounds like Prince of Egypt to me.
Prince of Egypt is so much better than this movie.
Well, obviously that. I'm saying what they tried to do with Prince of Egypt in regards to the Ten Commandments.
Mm-hmm.
And succeeded. It sounds like they tried to do with this movie and failed.
Yeah,
yes,
because Prince of Egypt was a very tasteful selection of scenes and events from that story that worked it as a great narrative because at the center of it was these two brothers.
Yes.
Ironically, you should mention that in the discussion with Ben-Hur.
And Moses was a slave or born a slave.
Let my people go.
He was not. He was.
He was born Jewish.
Well, at least
Moses was more or less in the Ten Commandments story. He was kind of adopted by the Egyptian nobility and taken in and raised not as a slave but as sort of their equal. But he became estranged from them as he got older because he realized that he was a Hebrew and he wanted to go back to his people.
Hebrew. Yeah. Okay, that's the PC term I should be using.
It's very, very choppy in terms of the way you can tell that they worked very hard to condense the story down to a 2-hour movie.
That worked desperately hard to do it, and unfortunately, it every cut is felt painfully in it.
You know who wrote it, right?
Who wrote
the guy who wrote 12 Years a Slave worked on the script.
Yeah.
Has he got final credits, or is he share credits with 5 other people?
Second, he punched up the script, I believe.
Well,
okay. But does he have a final credit, or is he uncredited?
He's credited.
He's not given top billing in the credit, but he is the... here's the thing. One thing to remember is John Ridley, besides writing 12 Years a Slave, he also was one of the writers of Red Tails, so you can't win them all.
Oh, my God.
So who else wrote 12 Years a Slave? Then we can find out why it was good.
All right. Other
12 Years a Slave.
No, that was just John Ridley.
Just John Ridley.
Some of that might come from the text of the book.
It can't. You know what? It simply can't all be winners. Now, and speaking of the text of the book, they could have taken from the text of Ben-Hur,
and they didn't.
So let me get into my my little fan theory here. My fan theory is that the world of this Ben-Hur movie is the same world of the Bruce Almighty series, and I believe that Morgan Freeman's character is God, and I believe that the movie fully fleshes that out because what he does in this film is completely selflessly change events based on his own power to do so.
So what you're saying is this movie is also in the Joan of Arcadia universe?
Yes, it certainly could be, and and it's worth noting that not only that, but in the world of the Ben-Hur / Bruce Almighty universe, um,
The
you have Morgan
extended
Freeman as God,
universe.
and you have Jesus mysteriously like popping up in places way too convenient. I mean, here's the thing: in this movie, Ben-Hur and Jesus are on like name terms because he knows the guy's name, and
Jesus knows
Ben-Hur,
everybody's name though. He's Deus
yeah,
Ex Jesus.
yeah, as opposed to in the '59 movie, they do it so tastefully. It's wonderful. When they first introduce him, Ben-Hur is, it's the same scene of, he's dying, he needs water, and they never even show his face.
Huh.
And they never show his face. He just gives Ben-Hur water, and Ben-Hur is struck by what he's seeing, and the Roman centurion is about to stop him, and he's awestruck. Whereas in this case, they don't give the centurion a reason to feel awestruck because it's just a dude.
Just a dude. So, do you know
There's
that
no
Jesus
sense
in
of
this movie is played by the same guy that played Xerxes in 300?
Yes.
Rodrigo Santoro.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I definitely found that intriguing.
Interesting choice of movies that he has. So yeah, Morgan Freeman wearing the Battlestar Galactica wig. They do their shit for like another 10,000 years.
You mean Battlefield Earth?
What?
Battlefield Earth or Battlestar Galactica?
Battlefield Earth. Sorry.
Okay, I was gonna say Battlestar Galactica. Is like where were the dreadlocks?
No, he's wearing the fucking John Travolta wig from Battlefield Earth.
Oh yeah.
Spray painted white, of course.
And it's such an obvious wig too. You can see the join. It's like
it gets better. Morgan Freeman was in an interview where he got like he was pretty much decided he wanted to be a movie when he got to try on the wig. He's like, "Oh, this wig is awesome," which finally proves that Morgan Freeman no longer gives a shit.
He's always been the kind of actor who will appear in whatever movie pays his rent.
Yeah,
and that's cool. I have no problem with that.
He used to actually try.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue he even if in a couple scenes here, in this movie, he does show his presence. He's Morgan Freeman, one way or another.
How much total screen time would you say he has in this?
Oh, significant amount. I'd say he's in most of the second hour.
Maybe here's where the budget went.
I would say at least 45 minutes of the film he's in. And probably.
I would say most of the budget went to the galley fight and the chariot sequence. So the galley fight I didn't think was that bad. It was a little chaotic, but I'd be curious to. I would strap on my headset and watch a VR version of that. If they did it all in first person.
The galley fight in the '59 movie is of course lower rent, but it's done with these very impressive miniatures that. Really enhance the big size of it. It doesn't, you don't see as much, but it's much more. It feels much more gritty and it feels much more powerful because you're not seeing just these huge weird camera angles and just it's the original, the one from the '59 movie is just fucking better. Period.
Obviously, yeah, but. There's just some weird stuff in this, and I'll get into one thing about it later on. But it was still visceral. This new one, especially I really like the shot, which they use in the trailers, of course, of when the ship finally blows apart. You get a first-person shot of Ben-Hur being yanked out by his legs by the chain into the it's so enclosed and claustrophobic. And all of a sudden he's yanked out and he's 50 feet above the water, and you see all these ships just going at it. That was a pretty cool shot. Timur Bekmambetov does have some cool visual stuff in his movies, for the most part.
Yeah, except he's like Zack Snyder in that he's got an eye for visuals. He just has no taste.
Oh sure, yeah, and that was the other thing about Ben-Hur is that for a movie that they touted as being all about forgiveness and really aimed at the faith-based crowd in the last push of marketing. Very kind of sadistic violence for a PG-13 movie.
Yeah, like the random scene in the galley fight of the Roman tied to the front of the mast as they're going
what the fuck?
speed.
Or
And then
part that
you see
made-
the blood like spray at the camera.
Yes. And one part that made me laugh, I laughed. It was probably
Oh,
the
I
hardest
laughed throughout this movie because there were these wonderful, just absurd moments that were like, why the fuck would you make that decision in a movie like this? You're
Yeah,
supposed
or
to be taken seriously.
one of the ones I laughed the hardest at is, again, with the crazy violence, is the enemies start dripping oil through the cracks and the shooting fires. The drummer guy, like, catches on fire and keeps drumming.
Yeah, he keeps drumming even though he's on fucking fire.
Boom, 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 and he's just on fire as he doesn't give a shit. He just keeps on drumming while he's on fire.
Yeah, he doesn't even seem to be in pain. He's just like burning.
Keep burning.
What's the name of the guitar character in Fury Road?
Oh,
He has a name. He has a fucking name.
I don't remember, but yeah, that's the inspiration of it is from Fury Road the idea of the guy who's kind of leading his men on with the music. But anyway, let's get into the chariot race.
How do you pronounce this director's name?
Timur Bekmambetov.
Jesus Christ. Every time I see his name in text, it's just like this mashup of syllables.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from with that. Your voice is going back to robotic again, Bill, but unfortunately. But yeah, so the chariot race. First of all, I'm gonna say I didn't hate the chariot race. I think it had some well-shot moments in it, but my problem with it is that it loses kind of a sense of the dramatic when you can't really tell what is causing some things to happen. Like I have no idea what caused the accident that got Masala that caused him to crash, because it was shot so so awkwardly. I didn't know what it was that caused his chariot to crash.
I think they rammed the wheels into each other and his axle came off. Now, the one that I didn't get was the guy that just Fast and Furious style flipped, like, and the guy just goes flying.
Yeah.
To your point, like, any comparisons to the 59 version are going to fall apart. So that's why I did not watch the 59 version before I went to go see this one, because I wanted to go in fresh.
And the one thing is, both the 59 and the 1925 version actually shot a chariot race.
Like a real one, yeah. And this one, you could tell there was some CG, but Toby Kebbell and Jack Houston, they both learned how to drive chariots, and a lot of it was shot practically.
With a lot of blue screen around it. But
you can tell when they're using the green screen, but you can also tell when it's practical. So, and I thought the chariot race, yeah, like you said, it was okay. I thought it was the only genuinely exciting thing in the film. I thought it
woke me up. I'll say that.
Yeah, it was kind of gritty. It was kind of thrilling. Not amazing, but compared to the hour and a half that came before it, I'll take it.
Yeah, and one thing I did. I kind of liked how it turned into Fast and Furious all of a sudden, because you have these ridiculous crashes that are just so over the top, and then my favorite was like the secondary chariot racers who like fell off their chariot, and then they'd still be stumbling around the arena, and then they just get horribly mangled when a chariot just slams the fuck into them.
Yeah, they just get mowed over. I like the Egyptian guy with the whip. He's like, "I kill you! I kill you!" It's over and over again.
I kill you! Yeah.
Like Ahmed the Dead Terrorist.
Oh god, it was that bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. What else was there in that race? Oh, just like how every time somebody crashed, everybody runs out with gurneys and takes the guy and tries to get him back. And the two guys, they got stuck in the hallway, and the guard's like, "Fuck!" and he's like sticking out there, and Morgan Freeman's like, "Everybody get out of the way!" and they can't.
Yeah, I was like, "What are you doing in the way?"
The Roman soldier just gets taken out by the horses.
You would think they would have cleared the way, knowing that people were coming back in, or something.
Or designed the hallway like wider. I don't know, to fit more people, but that was all done in service just for a higher body count in that race.
Yeah. Oh, of course. And yeah, it was an alright sequence, but it wasn't worth the movie itself.
No. People keep pointing out that the poster of Ben-Hur yelling, if you kind of look at it the right way, it looks like Charlie Kelly from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, yes. You made that joke, and I thought it was a Photoshop.
You thought
Yes.
what?
Can you hear me? Am I coming in better?
Not really.
It's still robotic, but you said you thought it was Photoshop, and you're right. It does look a lot like him. Almost Sunny.
Yeah. So let's talk about the ending.
Yeah.
So it's bad. I just want to go full ramming speed into this one. So basically, it's totally different from the '59 version for the most part.
It's totally different from the book.
It's totally different from everything. So Ken was telling me about, like, this one ended like this, and I was like, no, it's not like any of those. This one. So basically,
shall I start by saying how the actual story ends?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, in the book and the book and the '59 movie take somewhat different paths, but they both essentially have these two elements in common. Masala is horribly mangled by the chariot race, and in the book he survives, but he's horribly mangled and bankrupt. In the movie, he's they pretty much indicate that he's dying, but he's but anyway, what ends up happening is the last thing he tells Ben-Hur is the location of where he can find his where he can find his family.
Right.
And it's sort of like a moment of momentary sort of forgiveness, where what ends up happening in this version, on the other hand, and Hawk, I'll let you go in.
Yeah, so basically the chariot race ends, it looks like Masala's dead, and Ben-Hur's like, oh, maybe it wasn't worth it, and he's all sad, and then his girlfriend is like, you should have faith. And then he goes to the Roman place, and he actually finds Masala still alive, sans one leg, and Masala's pissed off. He's like, look what you did to me, like, wherever you go for the rest of your life, I'll be there to kill you. And then Ben-Hur's basically like, remember when we were friends? And then
Bro hug!
and Masala was like, okay, we're good. And then they hug, and they're like, please forgive me, brother. And then that's the end. And then they ride up into the fucking sunset together.
Masala and Ben-Hur end the movie as besties.
Which is funny in a movie that tries very hard to eliminate all the gay subtext from the 1959 version. And it has kind of the gayest ending out of all of them.
Here's the thing. Rewatching the movie last week, I didn't even catch most of what you're saying. The gates. I guess there's some extent, but it's not Spartacus levels. I'll say.
Rumor has it that the gay subtext was inserted without Charlton Heston's knowledge whatsoever.
Right.
It was all an inside joke that he was not in on. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of in the script, and I believe the actor playing Masala also knew about it.
Yeah. So
very small strings of dialogue, but Heston had no idea, so he couldn't play into it, which I think is hilarious.
Right, Masala definitely plays it that way, but it's not as strong as as Legend has.
Right.
Certainly not Spartacus levels of
sure, nothing is.
Telling him about oysters and
except maybe 300, but
rub my back.
Oh well, anyway, that's their side of it. So then there's also the Jesus side, where this whole movie, again. Everything leading up to the movie is like, our movie's about forgiveness. And then, like, no, the first hour and a half is all murder, death, kill, anger. And then the last 5 minutes is like, oh, I almost forgot Jesus in this movie. Let's kill him real fast.
Yeah. Another great moment of looped dialogue when when Jesus dies, the blood mixes with the water and, of course, starts curing a bunch of people. And then it goes down to Ben-Hur's family, who are... his mother and his
conveniently
sister.
Beneath the same mountain that he died on.
Right, and you hear a horrible looping of "I'm cured."
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I saw that. Even when I saw it, I was like, "Wait, who said that?"
Yeah.
Another thing that made me laugh in the movie is that you see the shots of everybody like freaking out while the people are on the cross, and just this one shot of a Roman soldier like, ha 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 ha. He's just.
Earlier this year, I finally got a chance to watch that Risen movie.
Yeah.
That was kind of like
CSI Judah.
In a way, it kind of plays out that way. Does a way better job at demonstrating the the Roman mentality of, they basically treated it like, well, we got to do this. This is our job. They didn't take pleasure in hanging people up on the cross. It was just,
that was what they had to do. It's like someone who has to give a lethal injection.
It was like being a cop, basically.
Yeah.
Because they had to do that shit every fucking day.
Yeah, I just thought that was hilarious. You had that one random shot of just a chuckling Roman guard while everybody around him is wailing and stuff. It's just so stupid. Everything about this movie is so forced and excessive.
What they didn't do, though, is they didn't pull my favorite, in the greatest story ever told, that Jesus story, randomly cutting to John Wayne awkwardly standing in a centurion costume. Surely that was the Son of God.
Yeah, I kind of, that sounds like a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
What were some other funny stuff? Oh, two other things that were really funny in this movie for me is, the character is Jesus by A, he says something wise, and B, he's doing carpentry.
Yeah, it's so obvious.
This guy's like working on wood, like, oh, that's probably Jesus. And then the other thing that I started laughing really hard. There was only 3 of us in the theater. There was me, and there was a couple in like their 50s or 60s that were right next to me.
Yeah.
That really enjoyed the movie. So, I believe it was Ben-Hur talking to the Zealot, and the Zealot was talking about what the Romans did to his family. Like, they killed the boys, and they did other stuff to the women. And then you get like this really like on Ben-Hur, like this very like a very subtle, slow zoom on his face.
Yes.
It's like the worst reaction shot ever, especially because he had no expression. He was just kind of like, just kind of blank look on his face while you get a dramatic slow zoom on his face.
So there was an elderly couple at my Ben-Hur showing too, and they were just completely nonplussed by the movie, but the ending made them, like, I heard one of them say, "That's not how Ben-Hur ends." Yeah, one of them actually said that, and then I started just laughing uncontrollably when the credits started rolling, and the credits were running the fucking chariot race with CG like words like da 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 da.
Yeah, the words just vroom right across the ground.
The director's name roars across the Circus Maximus. And it's like, what the? Is this a comedy?
Yeah.
Did I just miss all the context? Is this like History of the World Part 2 or something?
What else was some fun? I know there's probably some other funny bits in the movie. But I'm trying to think now. What, can you remember? Oh, I liked it when the Roman soldiers burst in. The dad, he walks in, he was like, "Blap!" and then he's dead.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even tell, but again, like, it's PG-13, so you see the Roman soldier swing his sword, and the dad goes down, and then later he's laying in a pool of blood, and that's it. Pilate, again, I loved how they made Pontius Pilate the villain for no reason. Like, I think they're going to build up to, like, oh, yeah, he's going to kill Jesus or whatever. He's gonna be the one that tells him what to do. And no, he just kind of is Emperor Palpatine of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Walks around to people. I like when Morgan Freeman was betting on Ben-Hur to win. Why did he bet like 5-1 and all his golden horses and Ben-Hur and all that shit?
Well, because he's God. He knew he was going to win.
Oh, right.
Yeah. He had no reason to believe, because here's the thing. One thing to remember is that in the original Ben-Hur story, by the time we see Ben-Hur, he has been doing the Circus Maximus and chariot races in Rome for something like 8 months, and he's become the toast of Rome on the chariot circuit, and he's won a lot of awards. And so you can believe that character would come home to Jerusalem and show Masala up. This Ben-Hur hasn't ridden a horse in 5 fucking years, and suddenly he's going to get up to training and up to snuff and ready to run ragged a guy who's been in the Circus Maximus,
Yeah,
practicing.
What's the timeline? What's the timeline of him training? Like, couldn't we at least had a Straight Outta Compton, like, every other scene get a little title card saying what year it is? Like, for all we know, it's a fucking week after he washed up on shore and then he's racing in the chariot thing.
See, the way they compress time and the fact that they're just outside Jerusalem when shipwrecked, the assumption I make is that it's a matter of maybe weeks.
Yeah.
as opposed to a matter of a couple years.
Yeah.
So there's a big fucking difference there.
But
Anyway.
that's pretty much all I have to say about it. It fucking sucks. I wrote the review 6 beers.
Yep, I agree. So I'm going to go ahead and we're now going to talk about some Amazon pilots.
Right.
Have
you've seen all 3 now, Ken?
Yes, I've seen all 3 of the pilots, and the first one we're going to talk about is I Love Dick.
Oh, right out of the gate, huh?
Because I want to get this out of the way, because I don't have that much to say about it.
Sure, yeah.
I Love Dick is a mumblecore half-hour TV series, basically.
Like I said, it's very open about the fact, like, hey guys, I'm Art, with like weird freeze frames, and it's like
a Duplass Brothers TV series, basically.
It's worse than that, though.
It's aggressively pretentious, I thought.
It is it's like if SNL made a serious sketch about what a Duplass Brothers script in excess would look like.
So, I Love Dick is the story of a stuck-up New York filmmaker and her shitty husband, who is equally stuck up in his own ways and obsessed with like writing a new spin on Holocaust fiction or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Going to this town in Texas that appears to be some sort of artist community led by Kevin Bacon in order to take residency at this institute where the husband's going to be doing some writing. And she doesn't expect to stick around. She wanted to go do her movie thing, but she ends up staying because of her love for Kevin Bacon, who does nothing but kind of treat her like shit.
He's alive, is what the idea is. He's unafraid. Like the husband is such a wimp. Like my favorite part of the episode is when they're sitting at the dinner table, and the most interesting thing the husband has to say is, do you think this sauce is cream-based? It's just hilarious how boring and stupid and awful her husband is, and how alive and electric Kevin Bacon is. Now, I liked all 3 of the main actors. The husband was great. Catherine Hahn was great as Chris, and Kevin Bacon was great as Dick. I could see myself watching this if it went to a full series, but I could not stomach more than one at a time if it were to do so.
I don't see myself watching it anymore. I was uninterested in the characters. I thought Catherine Hahn did a wonderful job playing a completely unredeemable character who was kind of just shitty. And the husband did a pretty good job playing a completely unredeemable character who was just kind of shitty. And Kevin Bacon played an unredeemable character who's just kind of shitty. And
it was well shot.
It made for a well shot half hour of watching people be shitty to each other.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. It's from the creator of Transparent, so it could do some great things.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't have much to say about it. I was thoroughly unimpressed with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. I didn't dislike it. It was fine, but it is not the one. If I had to choose one, it's not the one I would want to see go to a full series order.
Definitely not.
And we'll get to that later.
So what we'll do now that we've covered that, because I don't have much else to say. Do you have anything else to say about it?
On that, no. I liked Kevin Bacon's performance.
Well, now we're going to save the best for last, so we're going to jump into War Dogs now, which is the latest Todd Phillips movie, and kind of the first Todd Phillips movie for a while to tread into somewhat serious material, although this is still thoroughly a comedy.
And I have not seen it.
And yeah, so that's why I figured I'd get this one out of the way. War Dogs is based on a Rolling Stone article and also a book about the true story of these two 20-something kids who found themselves in the mid-2000s getting entry into small-time arms dealing for the United States government.
All right.
What they discovered was that during the Iraq conflict, they discovered that the U.S. government had a huge demand for these small arms requests that were not the kind of thing that the big arms industries weren't quick to jump on. Like, we need a few thousand Berettas or something like that. As opposed to a few million.
Mm.
Just these small requests that still netted a huge amount of money because of the U.S. government's penchant for overspending on everything, and they took advantage of it. Jonah Hill is the main kind of head of this. His name is Ephraim Deverly, and he was basically this. He was kind of this cipher of a guy who was able to find out what people wanted from him and become that person. So, he could be a hard-partying nut job, or he could be a completely, straightforward, fast talker. Very good at absorbing that. And Miles Teller plays sort of his apprentice. They were childhood friends, and Ephraim moves back to Miami and becomes friends again with his old childhood friend David Pacos, however it's pronounced, and